Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Trinidad and Tobago is expected to enjoy increased levels of foreign direct investments over the next 3 years. This according to the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs. A public-private partnership between the University of the Southern Caribbean, the Government Information Services Limited, and the Office of Disaster and Preparedness Management is formed to host a crisis communication workshop. And a marine recirculating aquaculture system is launched at the Institute of Marine Affairs into the cultivation of white shrimp. Thank you for joining us. The University of the Southern Caribbean, the Government Information Services Limited, and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management have for the first time partnered to put on a crisis communication workshop. The workshop targets communications and public relations personnel from various companies and organizations.
The University of the Southern Caribbean, USC, in partnership with the Government Information Services Limited, GISL, and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management have put on a crisis communication workshop. It's the first such partnership among these three organizations. The workshop began on Thursday at the Hilton Trinidad, and as she opened the session with her welcome remarks, Dr. Laverne Jacobs Brown, Dean of the School of Humanities at USC, and one of the driving forces behind the workshop, stated that USC was honored to host such a critical and current subject matter. Noting that crisis is an inevitable reality, Dr. Jacobs Brown said it was therefore imperative that key stakeholders were equipped with and prepared to effectively treat with crisis. In the meantime, as she delivered the opening remarks, Dr. Wanda Chesney, Vice President of Academic Administration at USC, noted that crisis communication was everybody's business. She called for greater emphasis to be placed on response.
Here in the Caribbean, we tend to believe that crises will not affect us, and we judge and castigate those affected by crises until one day we ourselves experience our own crisis, and then we recognize that we have no plan. Crises are manifested in various forms, and a number of them are orchestrated by our own actions or negligence, and in some instances, our unwillingness to acknowledge the existing risks and mitigate them before they become full-blown crises.
Bringing greetings also was Chief Executive Officer of the Government Information Services Limited, Andy Johnson. Mr. Johnson noted his delight in the fact that a private institution such as USC could undertake such a great initiative of bringing together stakeholders to discuss this major topic of crisis communication.
It is not often, to my mind, that a private organization of any kind, much less an educational institute, namely the University of the Southern Caribbean, sees the need to bring people together on such a national scale for a topic such as crisis communication. The intervention itself and the decision to mount it demonstrates to us all the critical factor that is the issue of communications generally and crisis communications particularly for all of us.
Delivering the feature address was Senator the Honorable Vasan Barrett, Minister of Trade, Industry, Investment and Communication. The minister also commended the USC for taking a lead role in this vital area, stating that planning was key in everything. Minister Barrett shared his view that the environment before a crisis also needed to be strong and credible, hence the proper groundwork being absolutely necessary.
In order to manage and organize crisis communications, there must be an implicit understanding of the value and role that it plays, both on the national level to the safety of the citizens of our country and in the corporate world as a matter of life or death for an organization. The environment before the crisis ought to be very strong and credible and operating in a framework of accountability and responsibility. While this is within the realm of strategic communications, such a platform actually lays the foundation for effective communications in times of a crisis.
The USC, GISL and ODPM Crisis Communication Workshop ends on Friday. Felicia Wilson-Mon, News 4.
In other news, the country is set to earn billions of dollars in revenue annually over the next 3 years as a result of foreign direct investments coming out of the energy sector. Senator the Honorable Kevin Ramnarine, Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, provided a breakdown of the increase in FDIs in recent years.
The clear vision for
Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarine gave a breakdown of the current foreign direct investment this country has benefited from the oil and gas sector. Addressing questions in the Upper House on Wednesday afternoon, the minister highlighted the increase of contribution the sector has provided since key changes were made to increase the attractiveness of the sector to the international market.
In the last 3 years, the right signals have been sent, and there is certainty around the fiscal regime that governs the oil and gas business in this country. As a consequence, the treadmill of investment into revenue has been restarted. Mr. President, the data from the central bank show a marked increase in foreign direct investment in the energy sector in the last 3 years. In 2010, foreign direct investment in the energy sector was $501 million United States dollars. By 2011, it had increased to $1.7 billion US dollars.
The minister highlighted the introduction of tax incentives for exploration as playing a pivotal part in the transformation of this sector over the past 4 years. He gave a forecast of the amount of revenue expected to be generated as a result of these changes.
In the last 2 years, we have had 5 new discoveries of natural gas or oil. These are 1, Bayfield, now Trinity, EG8 discovery in Galeota, 2, Petrotrin's Jubilee discovery in Trinidad's Cluster 6, 3, BP's discovery of 1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in its Savinet 4 well, 4, Trinity's Teagal-1 discovery in Galeota, and the most recent one, Repsol's Teak Bravo North discovery in its Teak Salmon and Pui acreage of approximately 40 million barrels of oil. Mr. President, all this means that the upstream component of the national energy sector has been reinvented and is poised to continue to be the mainstay of the economy in the foreseeable future.
Giving an update of the dimethyl ether plant construction in the Laborie area, the minister notified the public that several Japanese ships were in Trinidad and Tobago waters as a result of the ongoing project. It's expected that later this month, the Japanese president will visit TNT as part of a Latin American tour for talks with regional leaders.
The development of the Mitsubishi, and that's now Mitsubishi Massey, not Neil and Massey, methanol to dimethyl ether project is now in a very advanced stage. The project represents an investment of US $850 million and is made all the more relevant since 2014, Mr. President, is Japan CARICOM Friendship Year. And we take the opportunity to recognize the presence of 3 vessels from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force that are right now in the Port of Spain harbor. Mr. President, in addition to Mitsubishi, the Ministry of Energy and National Energy are progressing the project development agreement for the Gasfin project, which is a mid-scale LNG project, and is also progressing the Massey, and this is another Neil and Massey project, formerly Neil and Massey, the Massey Metalldom Metals Processing Complex. All 3 projects are carded for the Union Industrial Estate in Laborie.
Kimberam Calawan, News 4.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us.
Join us for Mandela Day, a day of programming in honor of Nelson Mandela. Madiba, honoring the legend. Friday the 18th of July on TV4, Our TV.
The commissioning of the marine recirculating aquaculture system and the launch of the Jumpstart Aquaculture program took place at the Institute of Marine Affairs earlier this week. The system is used to capture Pacific white shrimp and tilapia.
The commissioning ceremony was used as a twofold event to launch the Jumpstart Agriculture Program, which is used to cultivate tilapia, and the launch of the Marine Recirculating Aquaculture System, RAS, which cultivates Pacific white shrimp. Speaking at the event, Professor Indar Ramnarayan highlighted the challenges faced by the fishery industries.
Most of the fishing in this country could be described as IUU. Illegal in terms of the type of gear that is used. Gill nets are much longer than specified. Landing of undersized fish, which is below the recommended level, as well as trawling in shallow waters, which again is illegal.
He also cited problems plaguing the shark fisheries industry.
And again, if I had my way, there'll be no bacon shark around. Because the shark fishery is an unsustainable fishery. Sharks grow slowly, they mature late in life, and they have only a couple of young, which are called pups, when they do reproduce.
He said solutions were identified to combat the problems like moving into sustainable fishing methods, developing marine protected areas, and to getting involved in aquaculture. The Trinidad and Tobago tilapia production has had a history riddled with challenges which have restricted growth of the industry. Due to the recent technological advancements and government incentives, there has been a renewed interest. Delivering remarks, Minister of State in the Environment and Water Resources, Ramona Ramdale, said, though numerous extraneous challenges currently remain, this Jumpstart Aquaculture program's main objective is to identify and support the most commercially viable tilapia farms through the provision of technical advice and fingerling.
We at the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources are gratified to be involved in the commissioning of this marine recirculating shrimp production system. This latest research initiative of the IMA is yet another manifestation of our government's commitment to implementing the programs articulated in its 2010 manifesto.
She says marine shrimp production offers an avenue for the revitalization of the fishing industry to mitigate the economic hardships experienced in the aftermath of the oil spill and challenges faced by those involved in the shrimp business.
As the Member of Parliament for Couva North, I can tell you that within that constituency we have the communities of Carly Bay, Orange Valley and Brickfield, and these communities are typically fishing communities, and we have had to walk a very thin line between satisfying the needs of the trawlers and the fishing community there to that of the mandate of the Ministry of Food Production and by extension the government.
The marine recirculating shrimp production system represents the conservation of 50% of an intensive closed or recirculating freshwater production system, RAS, which reused more than 85% of its water and was established at the Institute of Marine Affairs in 2009. The media was then treated to a tour of the marine RAS facility along with the minister and external guests. This pilot project was a collaborative effort between the IMA and the Seafood Industry Development Company and was intended to grow imported freshwater genetically male tilapia. Its primary purpose was to investigate the technical and economic feasibility of the recirculating aquaculture system in cultivating tilapia under local conditions to serve as a model for potential farmers, entrepreneurs and investors. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Part 2 of an interview with the United Nations Population Fund Assistant Representative for the Caribbean sub-region has revealed important statistics about issues affecting the population in East Trinidad. The statistics emerge from the UN's involvement in the drafting of the National Population Policy.
The United Nations Population Fund, formerly the United Nations Fund for Population Activities, is working closely with the Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development in finalizing the National Population Policy. The UNPF has been working closely with the ministry since 2012, providing training and overseeing the population situational analysis. News 4 spoke with the Assistant Representative for the UNPF in the Caribbean sub-region, Aurora Noguera Ramkasoon. In explaining the benefits of the population policy, she revealed information from current surveys which highlight issues affecting the population. The records pointed to an issue of particular concern among young people in the Sangre Grande district, where data suggests what looks like a correlation involving higher than average unemployment, lower educational achievement, and greater involvement in sexual activity.
We have a declining fertility rate. of about 1.7, which has declined from years past. But then we still have certain parts of the countries that has higher fertility rates. In certain cohorts, we have areas of such as Sandy Grande that have adolescent pregnancy rates as high as 75%. So the population policy will tend to look at some of those areas where you find say high levels of adolescent pregnancy, high levels of inequality.
She went on to explain that the policy would inform the decisions of government in rolling out programs to treat with the various segments of society.
Sandy Grande is a region where you have also higher levels of unemployment and lower literacy levels. So the policy would look to try and focus on particular areas to see how it can impact on the other initiatives that government is making.
The situational analysis and population policy are both in their final stages and will soon go before the cabinet for approval. The full-length interview with the UNPF Assistant Representative for the Caribbean region will be aired in a subsequent broadcast on 4 Our TV. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
News 4 continues right after this.
Learning math can be fun with Knowledge TT. Watch Knowledge TT every weekday from 4 p.m. exclusively on 4 Our TV.
Trinidad and Tobago's bid for a place in the Women's Volleyball World Championship jumped off on Wednesday at the University of the West Indies Sports and Physical Education Center in St. Augustine with Nausicaa playoff final round. The host faced Panama and got that bid off to an impressive start. We have highlights of that match as well as Mexico versus Costa Rica in this Wayne Cunningham report.
And with no better place to have one of these teams there.
5 countries are involved in the North America, Central America and Caribbean Final Round Playoff, which is a 5-day round-robin tournament with the winning team securing the 24th and final place in the Women's World Volleyball Championship from September 23rd to October 12th in Italy. In Game 1 of the tournament, the top-ranked duo of Mexico and Costa Rica face off. And it was the Mexicans dominating the opening salvo to take the first set 25-14.
Caracas home.
Costa Rica came back strongly in the second to take an early lead with some fine play at the net by Verania Willis and Dionysia Thompson. But Mexico was having none of it, and they took the second 25-17. Costa Rica got off to a sluggish start in the third and could not recover, as the North Americans cruised to a 25-11 win and the match 3-0, with Angel Rangel leading the way with 16 points. In the feature match, host Trinidad and Tobago met Panama. And the locals wasted no time in taking control of the encounter. Panama are no slouches though, and answered with some impressive spikes to close the gap. Sinead Jack fixed that with back-to-back points, which came in contrasting fashion. Then Kellyanne Belingi with a massive spike as Trinidad and Tobago took the first set 25-17. With Belingi serving, they kept up the pressure in the second as Jalicia Ross-Kidd finishes with finesse at the net. Johanna Arroyo and her team had their moments, but they were few. As the TNT squad continued to dominate, Shannon Thompson with the ace. She was a high scorer with 15 points. 25-16 the score at the end of the second. The Panamanians were just no match for the local ladies, who got stronger as the match progressed. Three sets is all they would need to wrap up this one, taking the third, 25-15, for the straight set win. Next up for Trinidad and Tobago is Costa Rica on Friday at UE Spec. The action begins at 6 p.m. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Coming out of sport, from a community football league to youth representation at an international conference, non-governmental organizations, community-based and faith-based groups continue to seek government assistance for funding programs in Tobago. Recently, the Ministry of Tobago Development answered this call with a check distribution ceremony.
The Ministry of Tobago Development, led by Dr. Delman Baker, has taken the approach that development must be a partnership between the government and NGOs through the outreach initiatives led by these groups. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tobago Development, Dr. Ellis Boris, noted that the funds given to the organization should be used and accounted for with transparency. He added that work of the organizations remain an important function in development.
Do something for the people of Tobago and do something for yourself. Against that background, it is my hope, and I believe the hope of the ministry as a whole, that the effects of these funding would be felt far and wide within your community, that these communities can be shining examples to each other.
Also speaking at the distribution ceremony was head of the Tobago Football Village Cup League, which was hosted by the Phoenix Sports Club, Curlis Winchester. He announced the winning teams, Plymouth, Golden Lane and Laketo, who walked away with $15,000, followed by John Dial Mount Pleasant in second place for the $10,000 prize. The third place spot was taken by Goodwood, Pembroke, Glamorgan. Winchester said he was pleased with the financial support of the Ministry of Tobago Development.
Phoenix is grateful for the opportunity to partner with the Tobago Development Ministry to run this thing. And we were glad that it was successful and everyone, no injuries, everything went well. We learned a lot along the way to how to go about running a tournament and putting things together. We had problems, but we overcame them.
Funding was also given to the Young Leaders Club to assist their member Nikisha Legaton as she makes representation at a conference in the United States of America. Other groups that received checks included Pentecostal Light and Life Chess Club, Lance Forme Women with a Vision, and the Plymouth Fisherman Organization, among others. Reporting from Tobago, Natoya Johnson, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. Now you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and feel free to visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/RTV4. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.